success was for people that were chosen instead of people choosing to be successful. And I know I've probably shared that a lot today, but I thought that success only came to people that were like already positioned for it, already had like the right upbringing, the right opportunity because they looked a certain way. Right? I thought it was like they were chosen versus they could be self-made. And I think that at that point I really liked Forbes a lot at that point, especially in like my late teens, early 20s, and all these people, like you can see, it's like generational stuff. So in my mind, I'm like, well, I wasn't born into like a rich family, so I can't I can't do this. And to some extent, that might be true. Like my dad wasn't like, here's $1 million loan or like anything like that, right? Like that situation never happened. But at the end of the day, like I learned that I could be successful by building from the ground up, by being consistent, by putting in the work, by putting in the reps. As a matter of fact, I think it makes you a more well-rounded leader and a well-rounded professional. But at that point, I had more of this defeated mindset or maybe victim mindset where it was like, oh, the world's kind of against me because I wasn't really positioned to win. But the reality is you can get out and step out and win. So in my early 20s, I did believe that I was like predestined to not do well, maybe, right? But the reality is I think that anyone can. And I've done a full 180 on that. And I actually now, like, as you could probably tell from this whole conversation, I preach now that, hey, you can do it. You just have to be willing to put in the work.
I used to have such a weird and niche theory, and that's when I was like a teenager. And it sounds so stupid looking back on it now because this is like I was the exact same. I thought you had to be chosen, and I was so driven on it that I thought that like your name would set you apart in that regard. Like you look at people like I look at people like say now like people have like names that just match fame. Like someone like Logan Paul rolls off the tongue. It looks great in words. Like even like Harry Styles looks great on bit of paper. And I used to always like look at those names and go like, oh, my name doesn't sound famous enough. Like these people have all been chosen already. Like I'll just go and do something else. But I think that that's a belief so many people have. But people have it from a young age. Like you mentioned in your 20s, you probably had it before that. Why is it bid into so early that is fame's chosen or success is chosen?
I don't know the answer to this, and I'm actually curious to hear your thoughts because it sounds like we kind of had the same mentality for a bit. But the only thing I can think of is that as a kid, you're told no so many times. At least me, maybe not everyone's that way, but for me, and I want to give this note here, but my parents are phenomenal people, so they weren't saying no to like everything I wanted to do, but playing in the street was a no, doing this was a no, right? Like the things that were probably unsafe. But I think as a kid, maybe you don't really realize that. And if we go back like further generations where there wasn't as much danger in the world, right? Like at a certain point, like before electricity was a thing, no one ever told you no to putting something into a socket because there's no such thing as a socket, right? Putting like a fork into it. There's no roads because there's no cars at one point, right? Like, and so when you're a little kid, you just kind of like grew up on the farm, if you will, right? And there was still danger, but it wasn't like around every corner of things that like, oh, don't touch that, don't eat that, don't do that, right? And so I think that hearing no so many times almost preconditioning you to believe that like, okay, first it's a no, but maybe it could become a yes, right? Like, and maybe some people just always hear yes. That's all I can think of. I don't know if that has a lot of merit, but ASG, I'm actually really curious. Like, do you have a thought on this? Because I would actually just myself would love to know.
So you've mentioned my thought on it actually instinctively, but I think curiosity somewhere along the line has been stopped being bred into people because
Hmm.
I I've thought about it from the guests I've had on, and I've said this to a few people, and I've wrote about it on Twitter a few times and stuff. The people that have came on the show that are ultra successful, like people that have got success that doesn't even make sense. Like I'll use for example Mike Patchen, who made 65 million as a CBD business owner. They're all got the one thing normal people lack, which is instead of going, oh, I couldn't do that there, look at how long it took them to do that, or look what they had to give up. These people are always like, I'll try anyway. I might as well. Like, what goes wrong if it doesn't? Like Mike genuinely said, if it didn't work when he started, he had a job already to fall back on, so it wouldn't really make much of a difference. He was just curious to see if he could do it, and I feel like that's something that is stopping people from thinking they could achieve success as well, or like it's chosen because I don't know. You look at things and like for example podcasting. People's going to hear the number I said, 4.5 million shows, and then go, "There's no way my show could be in it." But they don't realize that Joe Rogan was one of those 4.5 million shows. Lex was one of those 4.5 million shows. And Chris Williamson said recently that he went 4 years or something without getting over 10 downloads on an episode, and he's now one of the most subscribed podcasters and on YouTube. Like, I think that curiosity is something that we are breeding out of people that I think maybe 10 years time we're going to see that we should have valued it a lot higher.